Jump off a cliff, I promise you a safety net will appear. Leaders that are set in stone, leaders that are set in concrete are not very good leaders. I love smart people who disagree with me. Great leaders do, so I want to learn from that. I think those words that are old-fashioned, I think, in 2024 are the most important aspects of leadership, and I don't think people practice them nearly enough.
This is The B-Side. In this series, we're shining a light on the lesser-known stories behind some of Australia's most influential marketing, advertising and creative thinkers. We're going to discuss the often overlooked moments, the challenges, and most importantly, the inspirations that have fueled their successes. Because the real growth happens on the B-Side. Welcome back to The B-Sides, where we are celebrating the incredible humans behind extraordinary achievements. I am delighted to be joined by Rose Herceg. Rose is, and it's going to take me a minute here, she is currently the president of WPP across Australia and New Zealand. Her role is to support agency CEOs, promote WPP's collective might, fundamentally make the whole greater than the sum of the parts. Prior to becoming president, she spent over a decade as their chief strategy officer. She was the founder of Pop House, one of Australia's leading agencies for innovation, social trends and business strategy. You recently founded Coffee Fix. She is a published author of 3 books covering everything from business leadership to innovation, and is also one of Australia's leading social forecasters and futurists. Rose, that is quite a bio. That's what we call your A-side. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Dan.
But what we're here to get under the hood of is your B-side. And so we can start wherever you'd like. What got you into this? What inspired you to get where you've gotten to?
I think my B-side is my family, my
All
mum
right.
and dad. My mum and dad were pretty exceptional parents.
Awesome.
And
Where are they from?
They're from Croatia.
Yep.
They emigrated in the 60s. Had 3 kids. I'm the baby. I'm the youngest of 3. But what I, funnily enough, have realised is your childhood really determines a huge amount about how you are as a human being on the planet and a leader. And I had these incredible parents who were feisty, phenomenally good at raising kids, born to be parents. I'm not sure that everybody is, to be honest.
Yeah, I would agree.
But they are, and they were. And my father was an exceptional father, the greatest human I think I've ever met.
Wow.
And he really set his kids up, I think, for a world of wonder. And so he would say things like, jump off a cliff, I promise you a safety net will appear. Like, he was this incredible teacher. And I think if you are fearless as a child, you will be a really nice human being when you grow up. And I think that's the cornerstone. So my B-side is my family and how I was raised.
All right, I want to go a little bit deeper. So in 3 words, Dad's leadership style that he's instilled in you.
Fearless,
Yeah.
for sure. That's the first word. Humble. Humility was played a big role in our family.
Huge advocate.
Curious.
Okay.
Curious. Be curious about everything. Learn, read widely, and read all the things you don't believe in. So I think we're in a political pickle globally because you should read the opposition of what you believe to see if you can shape an opinion, change your opinion, learn from those that you disagree with. So he was a great proponent of reading about the opposition. He came from communism. And he would say to me, it's a great practice, it's a great theory, just doesn't work in real life. Now, this is a guy who was subjected to all the terrible things of communism, had family members in jail because of their political beliefs, and he could still read about communism dispassionately. So I'm a huge fan of just reading wildly.
I mean, that takes a huge level of self-awareness and self-management.
Yeah.
On that, I'd love to get your take. What are your philosophies on both self-management and self-awareness? Because I can imagine, as a leader of very senior leaders across the WPP group, you've got to have a level of self-awareness to know where you stop and they start. And how do you cultivate that amongst your senior leaders?
I am a huge believer in learning the things you don't know. And you might have an opinion, and I certainly have them a lot. You might have formed a firm belief, but you need to see the opposite of that. Great leaders can see the opposing view, take from that what is working and adapt it and add it to their own. Leaders that are dogged, leaders that are set in stone, leaders that are set in concrete are not very good leaders. My favourite leadership style is people that say, this is my opinion, prove to me that it should be something else. I love smart people who disagree with me. Great leaders do, so I want to learn from that. Leaders that are stuck in the mud are not my style or my brand of leadership. So that's the thing.
And how do you cultivate that within the teams? 'Cause I mean, from the outside looking in, that would require quite a considerable amount of psychological safety from your senior leadership team to be able to go, all right, I'm going to challenge the president on this one.
It does, and I think the way that we do it at WPP is to remind everybody that no one will get in trouble for having a different idea. Nobody will be embarrassed or shamed if what they believe is completely opposite to the entire room, but the time to have that debate is in that room. I do not like people that nod in agreement, and the minute they step outside, they're in disagreement and disarray. That doesn't help. It's also, I think, inelegant. It lacks any form of, I think, credibility, dignity, and kindness. So we are very much about, if you disagree, say it in the room. Nobody will hold that against you, but what we will hold against you is if we've called the play, and as a leader, oftentimes I've got to call the play. Once we've agreed, we're in lockstep. So that is the thing. Disagree respectfully in the room.
Mum and Dad never argue in front of the kids.
I agree. I agree with that. Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of, just listening, there's a lot of very human words where, I talk about leadership style and you go dignity and care and kindness. I think that's quite a profound shift from, certainly 10, 20 years ago, if I was to ask, what are the principles of leadership? Is this where you landed when you first started, or has there been a journey in terms of the things that you hold dear?
I will hold decency and honesty before everything else as a leader. Leadership has to cost you something sometimes. For example, if I've got a CEO that needs me to act with New York or London or parts of the world of WPP, they need to know that I'm going to be bulletproof, that I am going to deliver what I've promised, deliver it really well, and really hold the flag up high for whatever it is they need me to do for them. Now, that comes from character and integrity and dignity. I think those words that are old-fashioned, in 2024, are the most important aspects of leadership, and I don't think people practice them nearly enough.
I couldn't agree more. Other side of the coin, what are the myths and the truisms? What are the things that we think we should hold dear as good leaders that are just actually slowing us down, that we're holding as ballast?
Yeah, when you're wrong, right? I know when I'm wrong. Best thing you can do as a leader is to ditch a dumb or bad idea because it's wrong. It's not going to get you to where you need to go. I think leaders think they have to be right all the time. There is nothing more powerful than a leader that stands up and said, I was wrong. I got it wrong. Let's ditch that and go this direction because this is going to get us to where we go. So failure is healthy. Looking at what you've made a decision on and realizing it's not going to get you to where you need to go and you need to change mid-course is one of the most powerful things you can do as a leader. So being right or being more noble or being smarter than everybody else is just not going to get you anywhere. You've got to get rid of it. When you're wrong, you're wrong. And there's something very powerful about leaders that just stand there and are wrong.
But I mean, it comes back to the point you made earlier, even around, politics. We disincentivize that sort of mental agility. God forbid a politician should disagree with himself or herself from something that they said 10 years ago, and it's all of a sudden, at the stake because of what is essentially making a refined opinion on better information.
That's it. I love that point you just made, Dan. I think politicians that can learn, and they've looked at the evidence and said, 5 years ago I believed that. After reading, talking to everybody, doing the research, having a learned, credible opinion, I've now changed my mind. If we had politicians in this country that were willing to do that, this country would be in an entirely different place. I love, again, smart people who disagree with me. The political system doesn't allow for people to be wrong because they get caned at the election booth. We need more leaders saying, I've done my research, I've looked at all the evidence, I'm now going to change my opinion.
Do you think that, and we're pushing into social forecasting because I love that that's part of what you do. Do you think we're sort of cresting a wave in terms of a little bit more acceptance to mental agility, particularly as Generation Z and young millennials start to have a little bit more clout in those circles? Yeah,
I think we are. I think we are getting better at dissing or getting rid of long-held views. Yeah. I think we need to let people just change their minds. And often I will change my mind and I've got a whole opinion on some of the things that we're working on at the moment at WPP. And they're actually wildly different to where I started when I started in the job 2 years and 2 months ago. I love that about me. I actually like that about me. I like that I've started here and now I'm here and we will be a better business as a consequence of that. I think that is something that the millennials and the Gen Zs are doing better at. But we've got to give them permission to go, you know what, I changed my mind. I no longer believe that. You need to have proof as to why. You can't just be crazily 1 minute here and the next minute there. There needs to be some evidence-based reasons.
Yeah, can't be erratic.
Can't be just because you feel like it. That's not good enough. But we are finally, I think, getting there.
If you look back over the last, 10, 20 years, what would be the things that you've let go of as a leader? Like the learns along the way that you've just gone, okay, that's something that I didn't need.
You can't keep everybody happy. And
that's a good one.
You need to call the play, and some people are going to get a little pissy and a little upset. Sometimes a lot upset in my job, right? I've seen some behaviour.
Well, you've got some big personalities, I assume.
And you know what? They just need to accept that that is the direction we're taking, or that's the decision that we've made, or that I have made. Popularity is a lovely thing to have. It isn't always going to be that way in leadership. I would rather, I think, be respected for calling the play in the right way. Also because we have a lot of jobs that I want to protect and have people thrive. And if we're not making any money, we don't grow. People don't get paid. We don't add more people to the payroll. So sometimes you need to let go of being liked and being popular, because it's not going to get you to where you need to get to as a leader.
Popularity doesn't pay the bills.
No, unfortunately.
You mentioned family, as something that's really core to who you are. How do you strike the right balance? I can imagine that your diary is litigated to within an inch of its life. How do you strike the right balance, as someone that deeply holds family ties important?
I have become very good at drawing a line on what is my time and what is the company's time. And I'm very good at switching off. I mean, I've become expert at, it's almost like a light switch goes off. And unless literally the building is burning down or it's material to me knowing, no one calls me, because that is not healthy for them. It's not healthy for me.
And you've set that expectation?
Absolutely right. Again, unless it's something that is truly worth knowing. A good example is the heinous attacks at the Bondi Junction Westfield. They're a client of ours. A lot of our people live within a 5-kilometre radius. We needed to make sure that our people were safe. We needed to make sure that we made decisions for our clients. That's different. That happened Saturday afternoon at 3:30.
You're on.
But generally speaking, I've become very good at letting it go. When I walk into my beautiful home with my beautiful partner, it's not about the work, because I will be a very poor leader if I'm working 11, 12, 1 a.m., 2 a.m. or taking calls from London at crazy hours. So we set the line, and I think that's really healthy for everybody.
For those that might take a cynical view and go, well, it's easy as, as the pointy end of the spear to do that, but I'm in a middle management or an up-and-coming role, what advice would you give to them to be able to create those boundaries? Because, I fundamentally agree it's not healthy, and you burn out. That stuff catches up with you back. What would your guidance be to them to create those same expectations?
Tell your boss that you have a life and that you want to respect your life, but more importantly, remind them that you are a better unit of labour if you have time with your family. It's really interesting. I've got a lot of people who come to me, women in particular, who say, Rose, I've got 3 kids under the age of 10. I want to go and pick up my kids from school, or go to the school play, or go to the Mother's Day fete. And I keep saying, why are you telling me? Go.
Yeah.
And they are constantly telling me, it's so refreshing that you get that. And I'm like, of course I get that.
Yeah.
I think that when you have a happy family life, happy spouse, happy children, happy partner, your work is 1,000,000% better. So I don't draw a correlation between, they need to be working crazy hours because we need them. I need them to have a happy home life, to be useful to me in the workplace. So I flipped it, and that's working for us. So if you have a life, tell your boss that you're going to have a life.
Yeah.
And as a leader, though, leaders need to set that expectation, because people mirror behaviour. And if I'm the one working crazy hours, I'm basically saying to the other 2,500, I expect that of you as well. I don't.
I want to talk about Coffee Fix, because I love the juxtaposition, right? Because I think that there's probably some really interesting nuance there. So for those that don't know, so, incredibly broad shoulders, you've got to run the WPP group, and then up comes Coffee Fix. Talk to us about Coffee Fix.
So I'm a serial new small business person. I've had 3 small businesses, and I've sold 3 small businesses. Even when I was the chief strategy officer, the first part of that tenure was just consulting. I was doing little things on the side and growing them and selling them. It keeps me sharp, keeps my skills sharp. For a lot of our clients, they love it. because they say to me, you know how to build a brand, how to set up an e-commerce play, how to actually have stock keeping units that you have to fulfill in a timely manner, as does almost every one of our clients. So it's real life. And there's some credibility that comes from doing it, not just talking about it.
Yeah, and it's money can't buy market research.
That's it. That's exactly right. And oftentimes we've got hundreds or thousands of people that are buying from us. And by being in a marketplace and growing something from the ground up, I understand what it's like for a lot of our clients who are doing that every day, so that I'm not just paying lip service to that. I'm like, I get it. You've got to keep product on a shelf. You've got to fulfill it in a timely manner. You've got to make sure that your e-commerce platform is working. For us, it's Shopify. Like, you've got to make sure that it's all working.
Yeah.
There's a level of credibility and pragmatism when I'm talking to our clients about the things that I'm facing.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a bit of a side play. It doesn't take me an enormous amount of time, but it does teach me the valuable principles of putting my money where my mouth is.
And am I correct in assuming it's also the counterpoint for sort of having a very defined role in your role as president, but then you've got to be the jack of all trades. You know, you might go from being the CMO to picking up paper clips from Officeworks.
That's exactly right. Keeps you very humble.
Yeah.
You know, I might lead a WPP, but I'm a servant to our people. I serve at the pleasure of our 2,500, our 2,577. That's our exact number, right? But I work for them, not the other way around. And when you are having a small business, it very much reminds you that nobody is bigger than the game, and nobody is bigger than putting, you know, a stamp on a letter if that's what you need to do, or fulfilling a box that needs to get delivered, or making sure that you've got enough stock keeping units that you're sending out the door. Those things are very real. And I think leaders that have one foot in reality all the time, and for me it's usually both feet, do better as leaders.
I love that. It's sort of a catalyst for being grounded. Given, you know, you see both sides of the coin, but from really polarized ends, I think that it's a profound balancing act. If there was such a thing as, you know, the perfect ingredients for growth in a business, what would they be?
Ingredient number one is just tenacity.
Okay.
You need to be dogged, and you need to never give up. That's the first one. The second one is courage. I don't see nearly enough guts. And I don't mean the guts that doesn't cost you anything. I'm talking about the guts where you've got to lay it on the line and your neck is on the chopping block if it doesn't work. And you get fired. That's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about guts and courage. Sometimes you've got to go there, and if it doesn't work, you might be out of a job. The third one, of course, is creativity. We're a creative transformation company. The most successful lever that has been proven 1,000,000 times over for growth, and I'm talking about financial growth, P&L and a balance sheet and an EBITDA, is creativity. So they're the three ingredients.
I love that. Other side of the coin, what are the ingredients that we might be fixating on that just don't drive growth, that they're just holding us back?
Neatness, organizational neatness makes me really crazy. It's all neat and tidy on a piece of paper, but in real life it doesn't translate. Chuck it out. Neatness doesn't get you anywhere but a really neat desk.
Can you give me an example?
So when you want to be aligned as an organization, it all looks good on paper and everything is organizationally sound. But for example, the product itself is crappy, doesn't taste good. Nobody wants to buy it. It might work in your supply chain or in your product factory or on your assembly line, but in real life, nobody's buying it because it just tastes bad. That is one of those examples of understand what's going to really fuel your growth or fuel your success, rather than it's what our factory can make.
Yeah, so it's we've got a product, let's find a market, versus there's a customer need, how do we fix it?
Exactly right, exactly right.
Last question from me. Knowing what you know now, we finish on the same question no matter who comes on the show. With all of the success that you've had, if you could go back and talk to Rose 20 years ago, what advice would you give her and why?
I would have figured out a lot earlier that there's usually only 2 or 3 things that move the dial.
Ooh.
And the 55 things on the to-do list are for naught. They are meaningless. My best skill these days is taking a red pen to people's lists and saying, that won't help anything. Why are you even doing that? That's a ridiculous meeting. Can that meeting? No need. That, and that, they're the things that are going to achieve growth. I wished I'd had those skills 20 years ago. I think it's the greatest skill is to be razor sharp with your focus and to be ruthlessly articulate about the things that will move the dial. The biggest thing that most leaders struggle with is the things on the list versus the things that they need to do.
And I suspect that that becomes even more central in startups. that you're
Absolutely
defined by the
right.
things that you say no to.
Absolutely right. I mean, think about the list that you've got to do, Dan, right?
Yeah.
Think about how many things really will make a difference to your career and your life. Getting that laser sharp focus where you can ditch all the things that will just make no difference at all.
I think that is sage wisdom, and I think a brilliant note to end on. Rose, thank you so much for joining us. I've thoroughly enjoyed this chat.
Dan, thanks for having me. Thank you.